You ever have people in your life that insist on things that they think you should do? Maybe it's a salesman or maybe it's a friend, and you give into that insistence and then you regret it later and like, it really wasn't what I wanted to do. There's people that are just incredible at being very persuasive and very persistent in getting others to do things. Well, Paul, in Ephesians chapter 4, this is the passage we read this past Sunday, he uses really strong language about some things he is telling us to do. And the motivation for why he's being so persistent is different than what we've probably experienced for most of our lives with people that are persistent. In verse 17 and 18 of chapter 4, Paul says, "So I tell you this, and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts." So Paul is using the word Gentiles to describe people that are not followers of Christ. So anybody that's not a follower of Jesus. And he's saying that the reason their understanding is darkened, the reason that they're separated from God, is because their hearts have grown hard. And so Paul is using this language that's really strong. I insist on it in the Lord. Like whatever you're allowing into your heart that's causing it to grow hard, get rid of that. Because his desire as an apostle for Jesus Christ is to communicate this message to people to show them that they can have this close relationship with God. And one of the things that causes separation between us and God is when our hearts grow hard. And you and I are the ones that willfully give into things that cause our hearts to grow hard and cause us to be separated from God. In this incredible chapter, Paul lists quite a few things. There's lying, there's anger, there's malice, there's bitterness, sensuality. When we give into these things, it actually causes our hearts to grow hard and we're separated from God. And Paul, the reason he's being so insistent is because he's discovered this relationship with God that is absolutely life-changing and incredible. And there's this intimacy that every human heart longs for. And he's saying, if you would just turn away from these things that are causing your hearts to grow hard, you can have this same intimacy with God. And one of the examples Paul uses is he talks about anger. In verse 26, he says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." So what Paul is saying here is when you and I give into anger over a long period of time, it actually gives the devil a foothold in our lives. It causes our hearts to grow hard and separates us from intimacy with God. And I want to ask you this week about anger. What do you do when you're angry? This is a really famous passage, and Paul says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And sometimes we falsely misinterpret that, thinking that whoever makes us angry, we have to go and talk to them right away. If we're actually going to obey Scripture, we're going to go talk to them and work it out. But sometimes you can't talk to the people that make you angry. There's sometimes situations that are just difficult and complicated, and maybe talking to that person would make things worse. But the Scripture is still true when it says, don't let the sun go down when you're angry. And so what I want to ask you is, do you have people in your life that will speak truth to you? There's situations in my life that have made me angry, and I've realized I can't go talk to the person, or I can't deal with the thing head on necessarily in a moment to deal with that anger. But I've got people in my life that I know love me enough to tell the truth. And, we've all been around people that love to express their anger, and they get, raging about things, and really they're just looking for someone to kind of pat them on the back and be like, oh yeah, you're right. But as a follower of Christ, we can't be looking for people just to tell us we're right in the things that are causing our hearts to grow hard. We need to be in relationship with people that will speak the truth to us to point us to Christ. And that's what Paul's doing here. He's saying, I'm insisting on this in the Lord. Don't give in to things that cause your heart to grow hard. And I want to ask you, do you have people in your life that speak the truth to you and point you to Christ? What do you do with your anger? Do you let it fester? Do you let it grow? Or do you go to the Lord, deal with it, and let Him lead you in how to rid yourself of the things that cause your heart to grow hard?